I am Abhishek.
Yes. So we are live. Abhishek, please go ahead. Start the program.
Hello, everyone. I am Abhishek Sharbokko, a PhD student at the Technical University of Denmark and a member of the Breakthrough Science Society, a Drought chapter. Today, we assemble here for the panel discussion on the regional impacts of climate change in India on the occasion of World Environment Day. Before approaching our panel, I would like to request Shruti for a brief elaboration about Breakthrough Science Society and the motive of today's program.
Thank you so much. Okay, so hello everyone. This is Shruti, a PhD student in physics at the State University of New York, Albany. I'm also a member of the Breakthrough Science Society Abroad chapter. On behalf of our organization, I welcome you all to the online discussions on the regional impacts of climate change in India, celebrating World Environment Day. Before starting the discussions, I would like to shortly brief you about the Breakthrough Science Society. The science organization Breakthrough Science Society, shortly called as BSS, was established in the year 1995 as a platform to create a new science movement in the country. The Breakthrough Science Society is a non-profit social welfare organization focused to eradicate the pseudoscientific mindset and spread scientific temperament in society. Breakthrough Science Society aims to cultivate scientific and logical faculty of mind, to foster consciousness against unscientific beliefs, superstitions, fanaticism, communalism, casteism, etc. To disseminate and popularize different discoveries and advancements in science, to cultivate the study of history and philosophy of science, to inculcate ethical values and social responsibility in all fields of scientific endeavor, to devise and introduce a correct method of teaching and learning science. Also to conduct campaigns for the introduction of a secular, scientific and democratic education policy, to move for the introduction of pro-people government policies in regard to research, development and application of science and technology for the benefit of the people, to build up movement for the socialization of natural resources and for the correct use of science and technology to ensure sustainable development and protection of the environment, and to fight against the misuse of science which goes against the interests of society. As you know, we are facing the consequences of climate change which cannot be ignored anymore. Since the 1800s, human activities, government policies, and ignorance have been the main reasons for climate change. Taking the opportunity of World Environment Day, which is observed on June 5th throughout the world, aiming to spread awareness among common people about the issues regarding the environment, policies, and our initiatives to save the environment, we would like to remind again that as a part of the Indian science community, we need to make people aware of the bad practices followed from generation to generation, affecting nature, climate, and it's high time to become actively involved in stopping the activities that cause harm to the climate. We also emphasize actively realizing the critical state of the present environment, taking steps on a personal and societal level to preserve it, and making or getting involved in communities to develop environmental safety measures. With this objective, we are going to listen today about the region-wise impacts of climate change in India. What's the present scenario? What we can do to make it better, and how can we spread awareness? Talking about the conduction of today's webinar, we will be listening to 5 speakers for 12 minutes each, and then we will take the questions from the audience. Please write your questions in the Zoom chat box or YouTube chat box if you're following our program on YouTube. We shall pass them to our speakers to answer at the end. With that, I will quickly just introduce our speakers for today's webinar. The first speaker is Pritam Sharma, PhD student at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel, and a member of BSS abroad. Then Sutapa Patra, PhD student at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel, and a member of BSS abroad. Then comes Shailaja Jain, postdoctoral research scholar at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel, and a member of BSS abroad as well. And Kunal Tiwari, he is a postdoctoral research scholar at University Politecnica de Catalonia, Spain, and a member of BSS abroad. And last, Debanu Chatterjee, he is a postdoctoral research scholar at IIT Madras and a member of BSS abroad. Now I hand over the stage to Abhishek.
Thank you, Shruti. Let us start the discussion now. I will request our first speaker, Pritam, to start the talk. Again, we are not taking any questions right now, but the viewers are very welcome to write them in the Zoom chat box or in the comment section of the YouTube Live. We shall again address them at the question and answer section at the very end of our program. Thank you.
So hello everyone, I'm Pritam. I'm a PhD student at the Institute of Earth Sciences, Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And today I'm going to be generally talking about the impacts of climate change in the northeast of India. But before that, I'll also give an overview of climate change because I'm starting. Now, I will look at three questions. What is climate change? What are the causes of climate change? And why climate change is a problem? Okay, let's start with the first question. What is climate change? Now, climate change is basically the change in average temperature and cycles of weather over a very long period of time, tens of years, decades. And since 1880, scientists have, kept thermometer-based records of global temperature. And you can see in the figure here what is happening basically since 1880 to the global temperature. It's increasing. The planet is becoming warmer, and this changing climate is basically called climate change. Now, what causes climate change? Broadly, there are two causes of climate change. One, there are natural causes of climate change. In our history, in our past history of our Earth, we have had ice ages when ice started collecting in and near the poles and other areas of the Earth. And then we have a global warming effect, and then again another ice age. That's the natural cycle of climate change, which you can see here by the green shaded area. Now, over this natural climate change, there is what we call as man-made climate change, caused by the amplification of the greenhouse effect, which exists normally when we amplify it because of human greenhouse gas input. This is what happens. This is the blue curve. Now, if we notice very closely, this figure here and this figure here are the same figures. And you can see the blue curve is what current data also agrees with. And this is what we are going to talk about next, why man-made climate change is a problem. Okay, so let me explain a little bit more about how this climate change basically happens. The greenhouse gas effect, you have gases like carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, which traps the energy from the infrared radiation coming from the sun. Now, once in the morning, the Earth itself will trap that energy, but once the sun's down, the Earth will emit that energy away. Now, if there were no greenhouse gases, then that energy won't be trapped and the Earth will suffer from being cold. But because we have a certain amount of greenhouse gases present in the atmosphere, we have optimum livable temperatures during night in Earth. But when the amount of these gases, as you can see in the orange shades, increases the amount of heat also increases. This drives up the temperature, leads to the increase in temperature. Now let's discuss why, what causes these increase in greenhouse gases. Okay, number one, of course, burning fossil fuel. Almost more than 75% of our energy needs even today are answered by burning of coal and petroleum. So that's one cause. Number two is deforestation because of urbanization or other causes. The less amount of trees we have, the more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere we have. And the third part is a reduction of biodiversity. It is not only that we need to have trees, it's also that we need to have different kinds of trees, so that even though one species cannot survive due to some conditions, other species can take over. So biodiversity, which is being lost, is also an important factor to contributing to climate change. So why is climate change a problem? Okay, first of all, the temperature is rising, which means sea levels are rising. Okay, why is the sea levels rising? Because the ice is melting in the glaciers. And number two, because there is thermal expansion. Okay, when there is heat, things will expand. And the water in the sea is basically expanding because of the rising temperatures. Now, what happens when the sea level rises? Cities which are near the coast will basically submerge in coming 100 or 150 years. Other problems of climate change: floods, forest fires, coral bleaching. We are losing our coral reefs because the temperature of the oceans are increasing. We are losing species because the average temperatures are increasing. You can see the plots here which show what is the abundance of species with respect to the increase in global temperature. If it's 1.5, then 6 species are lost. If it's 2 degrees, just 0.5 more than that, then 18 species are lost. So basically, and of course, the one of the more important that would affect us human beings is drought. You know, where there is lack of water and desertification, onset of desertification starts. So this is my part of me explaining why the basic overview about climate change. Now I will move to climate change and its impact in Northeast India. So climate change in Northeast India is real and visible. If you look at the plots in the right side on the top, you'll see the rainfall, which of course since the 1990s have seen a decreasing trend. Even though the rainfall is decreasing, there are still the floods are still increasing, which seems to be very non-intuitive, but it happens because of climate change. Now you can also see temperatures. There are 4 plots of temperatures of 4 different cities in the Northeast, and mind you, these cities are above at least above 1,000 meters sea level, and you can still see temperatures rising up to 24 degrees in these said hill station areas. Also floods in the time of drought. There is vulnerability. The monsoon season basically has extended for some parts of India, and then there is no monsoon in some parts of India. So in the Northeast, this extension of monsoon has happened. Intensity of the rain has increased. As a result, the river banks are not holding, they're failing. There is a lot of erosion, there is a lot of flooding, and there is a lot of flash floods happening. These are photos from floods this year and last year, and you can see this inundation map prepared by ISRO. You can see almost all of Assam has a flood hazard certification, and almost all of Assam gets inundated during the flood season in July and June and July. So this altered pattern of climate change in rainfall, the overall trend of rainfall falling for almost every state in the Northeast. So almost every state is getting less rainfall, even though floods are increasing. Okay, so local changes. in the last 30 years or so, all states and regions except Sikkim have seen, decreasing trend in rainfall, as can be seen from this, figure. Local district level changes depends a lot about, factors such as geography, forest cover. There are, places within the Northeast where there is more rainfall because there is more forest cover. And then there are cities where the rainfall is, significantly less. For example, in Assam, the districts north of the Brahmaputra, there is increasing trend of rainfall in the last 30 years or so, which may be leading to very high cases of occasional flooding. So this is a problem. So extreme weather due to climate change is a huge problem in Assam. And it's not only floods, by the way, there are also droughts and desertifications which are happening in the south bank of the Brahmaputra, which has, pretty much stopped receiving rain. Now, what is the impact on livelihood? Okay, in the Northeast, the rain basically feeds the river streams and springs, and these river springs and streams feed the people. Okay, and when there is such extreme variation in our weather due to climate change, the livelihoods are also affected. You can see the data. Unfortunately, I couldn't get data of more recent years, but you can see how much percentage of crop, gross crop area is affected just by floods. So up to 15% of the gross crop area is just washed away by flood. About 3,047 million rupees loss every year. So let's look at some case studies. So floodwater from 2020 floods in Dhemaji in Assam. This is a place in the north bank of the Brahmaputra River. And this place has been dealing with floods since, say, the 1960s. And along with floods, it's also losing its land area. So basically what happens when the floods come, when very heavy rain comes, the land near the river basically washes away and the river basically thickens. And so people aren't only losing livelihood and losing property, they are also losing land area. Total cultivation area is going down every year. So if you talk about the mountains now, in the mountains there is a lot of problem. There is illegal sand and boulder mining, which is also contributing to the overall dust levels, which is increasing the temperature around the mountain area. This river, this Pake River in East Arunachal Pradesh, used to be a natural habitat for eastern elephants with huge tusks. But now for the last few years, these elephants have stopped showing up. Another example from, this is an example of urbanization. This is in the west of Arunachal Pradesh, where rapid urbanization, because the accessibility from Guwahati has led to several constructions which has affected health of natural springs, its water impact. There has been a lot of landslides also in these areas, because when the springs dry up, the soil is dry, and once the slope is good enough, that dry soil is going to come down upon the houses and destroy everything. So in Nagaland, there has been floods like in Assam. In 2018, there were there was a huge flood in the Wokha district of Nagaland. There were flood waters retaining within the area till December 2020. Imagine what kind of mosquitoes and other pests might have, grown there. So flooding is a huge problem within urban areas of mountainous northeast towns, which is causing this huge issue. Okay, let's talk about what needs to be done. More wide-ranging and in-depth research into impact of climate change in Northeast must be done. There is no research presently. The study of combined effect of climate change and other human interventions like rock quarrying, illegal rock quarrying, like mining, rapid urbanization in the mountains should be, studied and looked into, because it's basically drying up the mountain water resources. There should be, of course, more meteorological stations in the hills and the mountains. IMD doesn't have enough stations in the Northeast. They just have stations in Assam, only a few in Arunachal Pradesh. Adaptation of strategies that will mean that the community itself is involved in its own growth, and rather than bringing someone from outside, and traditional knowledge within the communities, within the tribes should be used. Okay, science-based rejuvenation of natural springs in the mountains should be taken up. Flood and drought risk analysis. There is a lot of science has been developed in flood and drought risk analysis, which should be applied to the Brahmaputra River, and more studies of this should be done. We should also study new types of pests and insects in agricultural field, and the problem of pest as a destroyer of agriculture should be addressed, because now even the pests have become immune to the type of pesticides we are using against them, which is causing huge losses in agriculture within the Northeast. Now, organic agriculture, which in many parts of the region have always been practiced, should be more hence encouraged, and new and innovative livelihood options should be always introduced. So that's all from my side. So here's an appeal. Breakthrough Science Society has been campaigning to raise awareness on the looming danger of climate change and organize people for the movement against climate change and environmental degradation. The science organization has also been fighting to save science, education, research, and scientific temperament in the Indian society. So if you want to be a member, please visit our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Pritam. Our next speaker is Sutapa Patra. I would like to request her to take the screen. She is a doctoral research scholar at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in the Institute of Earth Science, and also a member of Breakthrough Science Society abroad. Sutapa.
Hi, I am Shrutapa. I am a PhD student at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I am going to talk about regional impacts of climate change, and I'm choosing the region Odisha. First of all, I would like to thank Pritam, and he very nicely explained what is climate change, how it's happening, and how global warming has a massive impact in temperature rise, both in the atmosphere and the sea level. So he already explained very well the natural and anthropogenic causes of the climate change. As we all know that Odisha is the coastal state of India. It is situated near the Bay of Bengal. So it has a great, it is affected much by tropical cyclone, and then it is drought by excessive rainfall, which is a major problem all over India. And next is the coastal erosion. So first, going to the tropical cyclone, how it is affected in Odisha state, I will just like to discuss how tropical cyclone happen. So when, due to this global warming, the temperature is rising, as well as the seawater temperature is rising very rapidly. And when the temperature is rising, a large amount of water from the ocean or sea surface become evaporated. And when this water become evaporated, this started rising upward. So this warm, moist water from the ocean surface started rising upward, and then eventually from the surrounding, the cold air start to fill up this gap, like the depression has created. And then again, this cooler air masses become warm again and started rising upward. So this cyclone continuously going on, and thus the cyclone formed. And when the cyclone formed, eventually the wind moved in a very strong direction, and it has a rapid effect. Now I am showing the data from cyclonic storms 1891 to 2007. You can see that there is a depression and deep depression 280 throughout this 1891 to 2007. And the cyclonic storms happened 72, and very severe cyclonic storms happened throughout this period 20. Similarly, you can see the data of drought from 1975 to 1996, 23, and 1975 to 1996, 88. I'm not going to discuss all this data. You can see from this. So next slide is here are few districts. I think Odisha has almost 30 districts, I checked. Here are few districts, and there is a data, the coastline in kilometer, and the number of depression happened. Also, this data is from 1891 to 2007 period, and the CS for cyclonic storm and SCS for the severe cyclonic storm. This data I have provided by Professor Pratap Kumar Mohanty from Department of Marine Sciences in Berhampur University. So when I was looking at the data, then I just make a plot between number of cyclone storm and the coastline. And I find a very good positive, I've not said very good, but it's a good positive correlation. And it seems that the district with large coastline has a large number of depression and cyclonic storm, which is alarming, because you think that region with large coastlines are then more vulnerable to the coastal storm, for example, Balasore. Next, so in that respect, it's very important to take proper precautions to save these places. So it was, I was doing this, when I was doing this plot, I just find that Balasore is very vulnerable. Next, I was looking for some paper, and I really find there is a paper which described how Balasore is very, very vulnerable to the cyclonic storm. And we all know that in recent years, Odisha and West Bengal both suffered from the cyclone Josh. And there is a small place in Balasore, which is a very famous tourist destination also, Talshari, how it is affected. In the next slides, I will discuss how it is affected due to this Josh. Next, here I am showing some data. So it is also taken from Mohanty et al. 2012. And the y-axis is mean annual sea surface temperature, and the x-axis, the 1891 to 2001, how this annual sea surface temperature increasing. So before 1951, the trend is cooler. You can see that it was -1, and slowly it started rising up to 0. And after 1951, it started increasing, and then it's reached up to 2 degrees centigrade. So this is the data from PCP, that is past cooling period. And you can see the intensity of cyclonic storm and the severe cyclonic storm from a period of 12 months, January to December. And this is the current warming period. And you can see the intensity of cyclonic storm and severe cyclonic storm. The interesting fact is that in the past cooling period, June, July, August, September, which is mostly considered as the monsoon time in India, and see the number of cyclonic storms are large number. But in October and November, when the winter is about to start, then this cyclonic storm and the SCS total number is 5. Now, if you look the CWP trend, see from May, June, July, August, September, the cyclonic storm is decreasing in number. Now, during the monsoon, cyclonic storms are also linked with this monsoon. So it seems that the due to this climate change, the monsoon pattern has changed, and as a result, you will find very less cyclonic storm and severe cyclonic storm during this monsoon period. But in October, November, during the winter, see the 6, I make it large number, that it's increasing the cyclonic storm and the super cyclonic storm in the winter period, which is a very alarming situation. So again, there is also data of wind speed, how it is increasing in the last 50 years. So here I have 4 states, which are all the east coast of India, situated near to Bay of Bengal. Here I mainly want to focus on the Odisha. That last 10 years, the wind speed is 80, and last 50 years, 130. But if you calculate the magnitude of the increasing, that last 10 years, it is increasing very rapidly compared to last 50 years. Next, so this is the very, this is an article of Sudeep Kumar Kundu and Harini Shantanam. They have a ground report from Yash affected area. We know that the very severe cyclonic storm Yash caused big damage to 2 coastal states, Odisha and West Bengal, which is happened on 26, 2021. And Amphan, the 1 year before, it's happening May 20, 2020, during all this COVID pandemic, and people are, as well as the environment, affected in a very large way. So here is the data of 2013 to 2021, almost 8 years. Some severe cyclonic storm happened during this period. One is Filin. There is a huge amount of flash floods affected at a population of 750,000 and 1,211 villages, and loss of natural forest on 120 acres due to floods. You can see the reference I have given. And next year, again, there is another hudhud happened, and there is a large amount of agricultural productivity lost. Next, after 4 years, again, there is a very big cyclonic storm, Titli. There is a heavy damage to the power infrastructure and the transformers. And next, there is happen again 2019 Foni. All the coastal districts become very inundated, and thickly populated coastal areas, people are suffered a lot. And next, the recent 2 is very big, Amphan and Yash. I think we have remembered, everyone, that how people are affected, how livelihood get affected. Almost you can see 10,59,000 was estimated as a financial losses in marine fisheries sector. Still, the loss for the Yash is under the present investigation. There is a ground report of impacts on marine fisheries in the Sari district. So here you can see that the visual records that obtained from the residents fishers. And first, Sari is a small village where mainly people are depend on the fisheries. On the fisheries. So they are they use the large size that motorized craft. You can see in the first picture that it get lodged in the sand, and also some non-motorized crafts which completely damaged. They cannot use this thing for next time. And in the third picture, you can see all the shops and including hotels which supported the tourist activities damaged completely. And there is an extensive inundation and submergence of the one-story buildings in Sari village. So they have shown the amount of economic loss happened, and they find that approximately 1 crore and 19 lakhs of financial loss happened only due to one cyclone in Yash. Now, if you think that every year, if the cyclonic storm increasing, a huge amount of economic loss is going to happen, and as a developed country like India, it's very difficult to cope up with that situation. There is also a plot they have shown that the cumulative vulnerability from minimal to high range and the impacts of the resources usage. And it shows that maximum cases that wooden crafts of these motorized craft that generally the poor people use for fisheries, it has damaged a lot. So you can understand that how poor people life can affected by this cyclonic storm. Next thing is drought. And when the rainfall deficit is between 25 to 50% from the normal, it is known as moderate drought. And when it is 50% than the normal, then it is called severe drought. Here I put some districts where from 1901 to 1990, the number of drought and the frequency of drought. Now, few districts like Angul, Baragar, and Kalahandi, Noapada, you can see that the number of droughts are very high in these districts, as well as the frequency of drought. This is also a data sheet for excessive rainfall happened from 1940-41 to also 1960-61, and Balasore district like Balasore, Ganjam, and Jagatsinghpur, it has a heaviest rainfall in 24 hours. There are no recent data I have found, is the all old data. Next, I am showing an impact of drought and excessive rainfall in agriculture. India is an agriculture-based country where most of the people depends their livelihoods on the based on farming. Now, when this drought and this excessive rainfall happen, it's eventually affecting our crop production. So there is a study by Panda et al. 2019, and they have selected 3 states with the southwestern part of Odisha, Kalahandi, Bolangi, and Koraput. And they are very vulnerable to droughts and famine-like situations, as also they are sometimes affected by this excessive rainfall. And from this total population, 30% or more than 30% are cultivators and almost 50% are agriculture laborers. So when this drought and excessive rainfall happen, it's actually reduced the crop production and poor people affected. So it's a huge socio-economic crisis. So they are showing a rainfall deviation as well as a temperature deviation that along with the rice yield and the maize yield deficiency years. So they took the years from 1982 to 2015, and you can see that 0 is the baseline from the deviation, the downward is a deficiency. So when the rainfall deviation is, by this blue and temperature deviation is showing by these violet colors. So if you look very closely that in 2010, there is a rainfall deviation. And then the yield of this rice and maize, both these major growing crops in that region, the deficiency is very high. While you can see in after 2010, maybe 2012, and some the temperature deviation and the rainfall deviation was less, and there the crop production is very high. So if you carefully look at this graph, it clearly tells you that how the rainfall deviation and the temperature deviation can affect the yield of the crops. Next, another point where Pritam also mentioned that erosion problem. That erosion is also an ongoing problem in any coastal city or states that due to the increasing of high sea level, the land becomes the land area becomes less. So you can see from this image that the phenomena of sea level rise and how it affects the change of coastline through the process of this erosion. And there is the famous Gopalpur tourist beach, and in August 2008, it was the situation like this. It is a public photo I got from the internet. And in 2010, there is a huge loss of land area. And similarly in August 2013, and see the result in August 2014. Now, another impact of this erosion is loss of biodiversity. There is a very famous beach in Odisha, is Rushikolla, and it is famous due to the olive turtles. Generally, they lay their eggs near the coastal areas. See, when this high tide happen or the sea level rise, generally their eggs will be gone. So after a few years, we are not able to see this olive turtle anymore. So this is the problem of this biodiversity. Now I would like to share one video, how sea level rise and how it is affecting. So you can watch this. So I think this video speaks more than whatever I speak for last 5 minutes or whatever. Yes, whether you can see it or not, the sea level is rising, the climate change is happening, and it is real. Effects are likely to be very profound, and we should be cautious before it's become too late. And this is an appeal to Breakthrough Science Society, which has put a lot of effort to raise awareness on the danger of climate change we are going through in India, and they are trying to organize common people for a movement against climate change and environmental degradation. It is also a science organization that has been fighting to save science, education, research, and scientific temperament in Indian society. So if anyone is interested to become a member, they can join through this link. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Shrutapa, for your beautiful presentation. Our next speaker is Shailaja Jain. She is a postdoctoral research fellow at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And I would really like to request our speaker to strictly stick to the time limit of 10 minutes because we are in real-time crunch. And right now the frame is yours, Shailaja.
Yes, thank you, Avshar, for the introduction. And so here I'm going to talk about the climate impact on the Madhya Pradesh region. So now, thank you, Pritam and Sutapa. They've already explained how climate change is the problem, and we should create the awareness, and we need to find some solution as Indian citizen for our country. But now my question is here, why we should concern about the climate variation impact on Madhya Pradesh region. So first I would like to introduce about MP. So as we all know, MP is the central part of India, which is also, we call it the heart of country, and it is also the second largest state in India. So if there is a huge loss of land area and population, it's a huge loss to the country. If huge loss to the state, it's a huge loss to the country. So we should focus on the this serious problem, and we should do create some awareness in the MP. The main problem in the MP, according to the latest information, is the heat temperature and heat waves and the temperature rising, that I will discuss in my next slide. So in MP, those people already, this government policy is there, which known as State Action Plan on Climate Change. They are already developing to create this, to solve this issue. However, the implementation of this problem is, this policy is not very smooth. We again need to do something to just implement properly. And so here are some evidence on the impact of climate change in the Madhya Pradesh. So main reason is the high temperature. Even currently, this is the latest data I am going to talk, not the old data. Even recently, from last 15 days, heat waves, even in evening, it's creating lots of issue and directly affecting the human health. And major impact of this high temperature is mainly on health, drought, agriculture, and deforestation. So I will discuss one by one in my coming slides. So how health is going to affect due to this high temperature? If you see the overall in India, it this year broken the record of 122 year, this due to this high temperature. And in MP, we see current temperature is 46 to 47 degrees Celsius. So there is one recent study. They have found the average number of days in Madhya Pradesh where the temperature is more than 42 degrees Celsius. And they have figured out more than 20 days in a month, in 30 days. This study shows that more than 20 days temperature is above 42 degrees Celsius. So it's a very serious issue there, and directly it is affecting and creating the malaria and dengue fever. So in latest study, I could not found the death due to dengue and malaria due to this heat waves, but its old study shows that 85 suspected death due to dengue in 2009 only in one district, Bhopal. And now due to the heat waves, second main problem is the drought frequency is increasing. And if you see this map, so MP has 52 districts. Among 52 districts, more than 20 districts are affected by drought frequency, and this year is maximum affected. But this is the old data. So this 2017 was the year where the large number of extreme drought, as Sutapa explained, what are the extreme drought and moderate drought. So extreme is where high drought is going to occur in Madhya Pradesh. So if you see, almost all north and south and central part of MP is affected by a drought. And here are some districts. So more than 20 districts are getting the effect. And due to this drought, now next problem is arising, which is very serious problem, is water crisis. So this is the very recent image, maybe last week image this is about. So people, even half of the population of the state is not getting daily water supply. Due to this, they are forced to drink dirty water. And if we drink dirty water, there are lots of death in the Madhya Pradesh region. There is example due to this high temperature and drought, 10 out of 16 municipal corporation is dried, so they cannot supply the daily water to drink. And even people are ready to pay the 1600 rupee per week to get the tanker. But in many region, people are on not even tankers are not available. In hilly region, especially north part of the MP and Bundelkhand region, they cannot get this tanker facility, even they are ready to pay. And if you see this image, this is the Chhatarpur, is the Bundelkhand part of MP. Here the women are suffering to, like, they need to cross the hilly region to get the even this much water to drink. So because of this, now this water crisis really become a health crisis, and they are drinking the dirty water. We are not able to maintain the hygiene, and because of that, woman pregnancy and children health is directly really getting affected. Even though MP has become the second state all over the India, they can manage the water resources management, but still there are some issue, some district, especially in Bundelkhand region, we need to create the some kind of policy like one drop foundation or something, just to hold the to solve this water crisis. Next, not only this water crisis is the serious problem due to drought and less rainfall. This now it is overall impact is on the agriculture. And as we know, agriculture is really very important in India. And now due to this climate change, it is really getting affected. As this is the latest study, and how this, like this summary of figure, you can see how overall climate change, emission of greenhouse gases and rising the temperature or drought or pollution, how overall things are getting affect the crop yield and food availability. So I will just give the brief summary how, like, what are the crop in MP. So rice, wheat and soybean. In the, like, soybean and wheat are the main crop. Even MP is the first state or largest amount of crop is being there in MP. But due to this climate change in recently and high temperature, less rainfall, all this crop yield is affected very much. And in the latest summary, I was just checking in wheat, last year it was no production overall, just to export, it was just only enough to the MP population. And due to this higher temperature, and main of the all crop yield is affected due to the heat waves. Yeah, so overall conclusion is so all these problem is combining. If heat waves, drought, rainfall, deforested, all this combining problem is directly affected the land degradation. As we know, Madhya Pradesh is a state having the largest number of forests. As just a brief summary, 9 national park and 25 worldwide sanctuaries, 5 tiger reserves known as Kanha, Panha, Bandhavgarh, and all these are directly affected by this drought and rainfall and land degradation due to the deforestation. If this problem is continuing, it will be the huge loss to the land, and field is available to the agriculture, and definitely this is going to affect the human life. And for example, due to this land degradation, now tendu leaves, where this tendu leaves, I don't know if you know, it's one kind of special leaf where most of the like 50% population of villages is depending on this this business. They do something, they collect the tendu leaves from the forest and they sell in the market. But now due to this climate change, land degradation, their things is getting affected, and now lesser rainfall is also the problem. So thank you everyone, and here is the appeal from the Breakthrough Science Society, as Sutapa and Preetham already discussed, so I don't want to repeat. But yeah, if you really want to become the member, or if you really have little interest to science and how we can create the awareness to the society, you please just go through the website and read the publications. And if you are interested, you can contact any one of us, or directly you can join through this link. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailaja, for your beautiful presentation and explaining the environmental issues and their impact which are there in the Madhya Pradesh and the surrounding area. Our next speaker is Kunal Tiwari, and he's a research fellow at the Universitat de Catalonia, Spain. I would like him to take the screen now.
Hello all, I'm Kunal, and at present I'm working as a postdoctoral researcher at IRIC and UPC at Barcelona. So basically today I'm going to talk about climate change and specifically what impact it have on the agricultural practices in the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. As the previous speaker has already set the floor, so I won't be dwelling much on explaining what exactly is climate change and what kind of negative impact it has had until now, but directly going with the impact on the agriculture, that too on a very specific crop of that particular region, which is soybean. So it's the outline for my today's talk. So basically I'm going to talk about climate change and its impact, which is in the framework of agriculture. Then just a geography of Maharashtra and specifically Vidarbha. Then what is its impact on the crop, specifically soybean, and how the community, basically farmers and other people are adapting to this ever-changing climate change problem, and what are the solutions that is road ahead. So this is a very brief overview of the climate change on the crops. So basically, as previously the speaker have already explained, we are seeing the temperature rise, then unpredictable rainfall, and also the increase in atmospheric CO2 content as well as the ozone content. So each of these factors have a very specific negative impacts on the overall plant growth as well as the ultimately the crop. So if you have a temperature rise, then in that case it will damage the plant microbe symbiosis. It will damage the plant cells, and also it will lead to change in the soil nutrients, which will ultimately hamper the growth of the plants. And unpredictable rainfall will lead to the waterlogging and the flooding of the fields. It will reduce the yield and damage the root in a negative manner. Then when you have a CO2 increase in a atmosphere, the plants will have a higher water usage, and it will change the nitrogen usage of the plant, and also it will lead to change in the carbon to nitrogen ratio and the overall uptake of these basic nutrients by a plant. In case of ozone, again, it have same sort of negative impacts. And all these results I have taken from a report, the title which I have given here for all of your reference. And if you want to go into more depth, you can please refer to this. Then this is like a map of India, and here you have Maharashtra, which is like a central part of India, and in that here is the Vidarbha. So in Maharashtra, you have different agroclimatic zones, and here you see this is the specific Vidarbha region. Unfortunately, the image is not of very high quality, and so some legends are not clearly visible here, and I apologize for that. So in this specific zone, you have moderate, also known as a moderate rainfall zone, and in this here you have a moderate to sometimes even higher rainfalls. So this is just a very brief overview of Maharashtra and the agriculture. And so Maharashtra is the second largest state by population. It's one of the state which contributes, highest GDP to the country. The 55% of the population is rural, and the 44% of the state is drought prone, which is a matter of concern, as if 55% of the population is rural and 40% of the state is drought prone. So we can imagine what kind of threat it poses to the financial status of the overall population, and as well as the economy of the state and ultimately to the country. And in this schematic, I have shown the major crops which have been harvested in Maharashtra. So in cereal, you have jowar, wheat, etc. And then in oil seeds, you have soybean, groundnut, and sesame. Then in pulses, there are gram, tur, moong, and urid. And in cash crops, you have cotton and sugarcane. So in Vidarbha region, basically, we have a maximum harvest of soybean and cotton. So from the report, the researchers have used this particular methodology to assess the impact on the major crops of the data. So what they have done is they have analyzed the rainfall and changes in the temperature of approximately 60 years to assess the seasonal change and what impact it will have on the plant growth as well as the total crop production. And from that, they have tried to predict the financial risks as well as suggested the routes or the methods which farmers can impact to minimize the damage. So just to give a very, brief picture here, you have two major kharif crops which have been harvested in Vidarbha. One is the soybean and the cotton, and they have like maximum area of in which they have been sown, that is more than 4,000 hectares. Then in what way this climate change is affecting this overall agricultural output, we have to look in terms of the how this soybean cropping cycle occurs and how the changes in terms of temperature or rainfall affects the various stages of growth of a plant. So in this table, you have like in first row, it's just a pictorial representation of different stages of growth of a soybean plant, where in first stage you have sowing and emergence. In second, you have vegetative growth. Third stage is the flowering. Fourth stage is the pod formation and filling. And fifth stage is the maturity. And this is the time frame. In the second row, you have the time frame for each stage. So between June to July, that is last week of June and first week of July, you have the sowing. In July, you have the vegetative growth. In between August, first third weeks of August, you have flowering. Then between August last week to September, you will have the pod formation and filling. And October or after that, you may have the harvest. And in the third row, you have the conditions like during this plant growth. So once you have the 100 mm of monsoon rain, the seeds are usually planted and different processes occur. That is, you have new seedlings emerging from the ground, then you have fertilizer application. In the second stage, same, you have stem and leaf of the plant growth. Then you observe the plant growth and you apply again the second dose of the fertilizer, as well as perform the other agricultural practices such as weeding and weedicide spraying occur. Then in third stage, you have buds and flower will start to bloom. And in the fourth stage, you have pod formation, as well as the soybeans will start to swell within the pods. And in the fifth stage, that is the maturity, where the pods are like full, and then the plant is dried, and then you try to harvest the pods. So now we have to see what exactly in terms of climatic condition has been changing, which has been impacting this various stages of this cropping cycle. So for the stage one, this is the optimal growth condition which are required to have a good harvest. That is the maximum and minimum temperature between 20, say on an average 25 to 35 degrees C, and the rainfall should be around 100 plus or minus 50 to 80 mm. But from the climate history data, from between 1989 to 2018, you can see here the rainfall has been very much excess in this particular duration. So the region has been receiving the rainfall of around 151 to 221 mm, which is very much excess. Similarly, for the other stages also, like for the stage 2 also, the temperature, the variation is huge. The temperature is quite increased. It has gone up to 32 degrees C, whereas the rainfall has been also increasing simultaneously. For the stage 3, the rainfall is very much excess, which leads to flooding of the fields, and ultimately it will destroy all the crops. And for the stage 4, same way, you have very much excess rainfall, and it will have a negative impact on the overall plant growth as well as the harvest. In the stage 5, where you are supposed to harvest and store the crop, the rainfall is, I mean, it's not at all expected. It is in October or something, which is the start of the winter season. But still, for the past few years, we have been observing rainfall as late as until first week of November. So that is negatively impacting the overall crop production and the harvest. Now, in this schematic here below, I have highlighted some of the climate risks at the different stages of the crop. So starting from the stage 1 here until stage 5. So as you can see, if the onset of the monsoon is late, it will negatively impact the sowing of the seeds as well as the overall growth of the plant. Then when you have excess rainfall and flooding, it will again damage the plant and may reduce the overall crop production. And ultimately, you will have the harvest loss. Now, the inferences these are the inferences from the climate summary, where at the stage 1, if you have a very low rainfall, then in that case, you have low germination, and the farmer has to do repeated sowing, which will put him under the financial strain. In stage 2, there is excess rainfall, so it will have a difficulty in weeding and again reduce plant yield. Similarly, due to the moisture and other things, because of continuous wet seasons, you will have increased fungal attack, and then the lowering of the flowers on the particular plant, and ultimately you will have less number of pods, and it will have a negative impact on the overall harvest. Now, what are the adaptive measures which a farming community can apply just to get over this problem? But it's worth mentioning here, whatever measures are being listed, like increased usage of pesticide, herbicide, this will be like for the short term only. We can just mitigate some losses by usage of this kind of measures. But in the long term, if you want to completely change the scenario, we have to do something about reducing this climate change, its effect, and as well as this overall weather cycle, which has too much disturbed. So in the road ahead, the things which can be done in the short term just to reduce the damage is, first, we need some methods for effective monitoring of local climate changes which are occurring, as well as we have to convey this message amongst the local farming community so that they can plan their agricultural practices accordingly. Then we need to improve the quality of basic farm requirements, such as seeds, fertilizers, etc. So depending on the changes which are happening at present, there should be some research which has been already going on, maybe, to improve the quality of seeds and fertilizers to adapt the present requirement. Then we have to adopt better farm management practices in addition to the advanced technology, such as recently what people have been trying to use drones or something to monitor the overall processes in farms. Then recharging groundwater resources and rainwater harvesting. I think this is very much important in particular in Vidarbha region, because if there is a drought scenario, we face drought months for a long time, and if there is excess rain, we always face too much flooding also. And there have been some social programs which has been going in that particular region, as well as in other regions of Maharashtra, such as the Pani Foundation, where they try to make some makeshift ponds in the unused land where they will store the water, and whenever excess rain happens, and over the time it will recharge the groundwater level. The next solution can be the improving soil fertility, and which will be like changing the cropping cycle and adapting to some new crops. And obviously, we need to do some innovation to improve the varieties of the crop. And I think if these measures are taken into account to some extent, at least we will be able to reduce the damage which has been faced by the local farmers and the community. And so that's all from my side. And from the Breakthrough Society, on behalf of Breakthrough Society, I would like to make an appeal that please join and spread the message within the community to avoid the practices which are not common regarding many social reforms, as well as what kind of damage our own practices we have been doing to the environment and how we are degrading it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kunal, for a very detailed and well-organized presentation on the climate change in the Bidar area and how it impacts the agriculture. Now it's our last speaker for the day, Devanuj Chatterjee, and he is a postdoctoral research fellow at the IIT Madras and also a member of Breakthrough Science Society Abroad chapter. Devanuj, please.
Yeah, am I audible? Okay, I hope I'm audible. So
yes, very clear.
Yeah, welcome to my talk. As you can see, the title of the talk is Regional Impacts of Climate Change in India. So I'll be focusing mainly on the region of Tamil Nadu. And thanks to all the previous speakers who have already talked a lot about the global perspective of climate change and how they are impacting some specific problems and how they're impacting our societies as a whole. So my talk is structured in the following way. So first I'll talk a little bit about the motivation of why we are here for this talk, and a little bit of overview on climate change. Then I'll go on to the context of the climate change in Tamil Nadu, and some of the initiate plans of action, and what are the way ahead or some kinds of solutions. So the thing is that there is always some kind of gap between the scientific community and the global community as a whole. So we can do a lot of science, but if we cannot communicate that science efficiently to the bigger population, then at the end it does not matter. So we have to find ways to implement the knowledge that we are getting by doing scientific research effectively. So there was a very good. So there was a very good study in Germany and in Switzerland, and they did a study on how much media attention the issue of climate change has gained in the past few years. So this study was in 2013. And in this study, they found that from 1997 to 2007, around 27 countries, only 0.6% of the news media share was focused on climate change, in spite of the fact that climate change has been in the focus in the scientific community for quite a large amount of time. So it's a serious issue, but we are not effectively giving attention to the issue of climate change. So I just wanted to bring up this point. And if you look at the overview of climate change, as my previous speakers have already mentioned, it's a natural process, but the way it's been changing in the last 150 or so years, you can see from this image that how the heat map is continually moving towards the red side if you go from 1970s to 2013. So this is an indication, and these graphs we have already seen that the global temperature how it is rising abnormally and how it should have been if there was no human intervention. So UN had already said that if we are within 2-degree rise of average temperature globally by 2100, then we should be fine. But from the trend that we are seeing, it's very difficult to achieve this goal. So finally, coming to the Indian context, so this is Tamil Nadu, as you can see, and Tamil Nadu is divided more or less according to the geography into these 7 zones. So this side is the hilly areas, and this side is facing the sea. So according to some of the studies, these are the main risks that the Tamil Nadu region is facing. For example, river floods, coastal floods, landslides, cyclone, water scarcity, extreme heat, and wildfire. So these hazards we have. So what are the main causes of this hazard? So the 2 main notorious effects are abnormal rainfall and the change in temperature. There is also sea level rise, but that has a lesser impact compared to these 2 points. So let us look one by one. So if you look at abnormal rainfall, so the average rainfall is expected to reduce by 9% in the next 100 years. So 9% is a lot, but this is only the average rainfall. So in the picture, you can see that already we have started to see the effect of this reduction of rainfall. There is a lot of water scarcity. So these are at the background trucks that carry water, and there is a huge queue of trucks in the water facility. And even in the Kaveri Delta, in 2016, we have seen there was a huge crisis of water, and there were like 17 suicides. And also you can see from this graph, if you look at the precipitation as a function of the year, so it has the average value has a decreasing trend. So we are already decreasing a lot, and then in the next years, if nothing is done, we are going to make it worse and worse. So in this graph, this is a figure I reproduced from this study by Kumar Bal et al. And you can see that in different parts of Tamil Nadu, what is the percentage change of rainfall in the next 100 years. So these are the hilly areas. So you can see here, you can see pockets of deep blue. Deep blue means there will be around 20% change of the rainfall that we see now. So these regions will be even will experience even more rainfalls, and that would lead to floods. And you can see in these regions which are lighter, it would become even less rainfall zones. So on the one hand, one part will get more rainfall, the other part will get less rainfall, making the situation more extreme. And some people will suffer from drought, some people will have floods. So that's a very negative indication. And like these will be the flood prone areas, Annamalai and the Nilgiris. These are mainly these areas. Now, next, coming to temperature change, again, you can see from the data from 1970 to 2000, you can see a very steady increase in the average temperature. And the same kind of graph, if you see in terms of temperature change, you can see that there is absolutely an indication of increase of temperature change. So this is 2.5 degrees to 3.5 degrees. So some parts will see a change of 3.5 degrees, some parts will see a change of 2.5 degrees. And this is strictly above the 2-degree limit that was set by UN. So we have to do something about this. Otherwise, it will be too late for us to act. And if you can, if you see from the predictions from 2010 to 2040, then to 2070, then to 2100, you can see the graphs are becoming more and more reddish. So it's saying the same thing actually, that the temperature is going to increase very steadily unless we do something about it. So that brings us to the question that is anything being done? So there are certain initiatives that are being planned from the state government of Tamil Nadu, and these initiatives will mainly focus on these points like water resource management, coastal area management, sustainable agriculture. Then it will focus on how to prevent degradation of biodiversity, sustainable habitat, finding a good energy solution, and last but not the least, making aware to people that something is happening and we need to act upon it. So prevention of coastal erosion is one of the big challenges, and that has been underway. So I think some 5 to 7 crores of money has been already allotted for this project. And there has been also some efforts in developing blue flag beaches, wetland restoration, and developing climate smart villages. But it is too early to say what will happen of these projects. So we have to wait and see how good these projects are going to be in the future. So in the future, we have some fights to fight. For example, if you look at the reports by IPCC, they are packed with jargon. So we have to make the climate science more and more accessible to the common people so that they can participate and they can understand what is happening. We also have to find good solutions for energy resources. Nuclear energy is a good candidate for that. Then we have to find ways of reducing carbon dioxide emission. So we have to transition to electronic vehicles, and all these things are non-trivial, and it requires enforcements by governments. So we have to act actively in these areas. Also, a lot of global electricity and energy use in the future will be invested in data centers, because data is growing exponentially day by day. So we have to find alternate ways of computing, for example, quantum computers or hybrid quantum computers, so that we can reduce this exponential rise in energy resources. So with this, I want to finish up my talk. And as everyone said, if you're interested, you can visit us in these links. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Devanush, for the beautiful presentation. Let's start the discussion now. So I will request Shivi, and who is a PhD student in Western Michigan University and a member of Breakthrough Science Society abroad, and also Ayush, who is doing his master's in physics at the Hebrew University to conduct the question and answer session. So all the questions which are there in the chat box and in the comment section of the YouTube will be addressed here. And if any of the viewer wants to ask direct question, he or she also can raise their hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Avisa, for the introduction. First question is from Shiva Agarwal to Preetam. And the question is, any idea on how can construction in Northeast be planned and done so that there is no severe impact on climate, since infrastructure is also important for growth and accessibility?
Okay, so the prevailing opinion amongst civil engineers in the Northeast is to basically get rid of RCC in the mountains. So once RCC goes out of the mountains, there is no cement, there is no illegal rock mining for construction, and the pollution due to the cement manufacture which happens in the mountains and degrades the environment also goes away. but that's a slippery slope, because if we don't have cement and bricks to build houses, then what do we use? Wood. That causes deforestation. So unless the government doesn't implement a one tree for another scheme, or maybe like 3 trees for another scheme, where they plant 3 for cutting 1, I don't think so the construction and infrastructure issue in the Northeast, in the hills at least, won't be solved, because people will keep constructing reinforced concrete buildings, which will keep polluting the area, and this will be a positive feedback loop.
Thank you. Next question is like from Pintu Devnath, BSS activist, Assam. And it is again, I think Preetham can answer this question. And it is comment on how deforestation and mining in Northeast have pushed the region towards vulnerability and change its climate.
Okay, so what happens in the Northeast, because the terrain is so different and diverse, there are microclimates. And those microclimates are generally very strongly correlated with the amount of forestation and the diversity of forestation in that area. So once deforestation sets in, once you start cutting trees for, say, the illegal timber trade that takes place between Mizoram and Myanmar. So once the mass deforestation sets, then those microclimates get like changed or perturbed. As a result, what will happen? The livelihoods and the people who depend on those microclimates. Okay, say tea cultivation needs rain at some point of time in the year, and needs a proper amount of sun at some other point, and needs a cold temperature before harvest. So if the change in the microclimates in the Northeast will basically mean that these time periods will change, and that will basically change how we as people in Northeast live, because our livelihoods will change, and our we'll lose our livelihoods, and our way we live our life will also change, because almost 2 to 3 million people are displaced every year. Like, they are so used to going to flood relief camps that now it's not even an issue for them. So it's changing. All of it is because of climate change. All of it is because of deforestation. And
thank you, Preetham. The next question is from Suman Kundu to Sutapa. The question is the yearly frequency of cyclonic storms increasing due to global warming?
Yes. Sorry, just a minute. I have to take a very important call.
Shibi, you maybe move to next
meanwhile,
question.
Yeah, we can go to the next question. The next question is question number 6. The question is like, nuclear energy causes harm to the environment by the harmful radiation, the radioactive particle release. If it causes damage and death to many life forms on Earth. If nuclear energy brings more bad than good, then what is the utility of having such power that can turn into disaster, both for the environment and for us? And this question is from Somshubha Das from Ramakrishna Mission Vidyalaya, Tripura. And I think Professor Dhur can answer this question.
No, maybe we ask this question to Professor Soumitra Banerjee, because Professor Dhurjyoti Mukhopadhyay is having some internet issue.
Okay. Then Professor Banerjee can answer this question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, yeah, I'm really glad to be finally to be able to join this meeting, because I was out, I just came in. Well, it is true that most scientists are not favoring nuclear energy now, because we realize that it has even though it is not directly polluting in the sense of increasing carbon dioxide content, but it has a long-term harmful effect, because the products of the nuclear power, the wastes of the nuclear power, these are long-term pollutants, which will keep on living much beyond our lives. So it is normally agreed upon that this has to be phased out. At the same time, coal is not a desirable alternative because it is polluting the environment. So you see, there are various issues, various power sources, each of which will have some effect on the environment. Even the ones that we know today as the renewable sources, they also have some effect around. The wind power generating windmills affect the migratory birds, and solar cells, we do not know how to dispose of them. So there are issues still. But the point is, if a government its objective is to look at the overall well-being of the people and overall well-being of the environment of the planet, then it has to find the optimal. But the optimal has to be found with the environment in the equation. It is generally not done. Generally, it is the short-term, immediate economic gains that is in the perspective. So what I'm trying to point out is that, yes, the questioner is right. The effect of nuclear energy is not desirable, so it has to be phased out, surely. But what comes in, definitely the impetus should be towards the renewable sources. But we also know that the renewable sources are there when it's there. When it's not there, we cannot have it. In the night, you cannot have the sun. When there is no wind, you cannot have wind power generation. So it is basically something that depends on the variability of nature. But we need power when we really need it. So there has to be some kind of a balance struck between various sources of energy, their desirability, as well as their environmental impact. And naturally, this is an optimization problem. And in all optimization problems, one has to find some kind of a, in common language, some kind of a function that represents the desirability, or sometimes called cost function. It's not really the cost. So point is that when we decide that, it is the environment that we should try to protect. We should try to protect the interest of the overall population, not just a handful. And with that in mind, we have to choose the different sources of energy. That's my answer.
That's a really nice explanation, sir.
Can I add something?
Yes, sure, Devanuj.
Yeah. So what sir was telling is mostly in the current context, but there is also kind of a, I think, silver lining to this answer. If you think in terms of futuristic prospects, so for nuclear energy, one of the main reasons, as sir was saying, was the nuclear waste management, which is currently a big field of research. And the waste, nuclear waste that is there, has a very long half-life. But now, if you can find alternate ways to have nuclear fission reactions where the waste products would have a very low half-life, then they would decay much faster. Or you can make a technology that can convert your nuclear waste into a material that has a very low half-life. That can be one probably futuristic solution. The other thing is that there has been recently some big news about fusion experiments being carried out in a laboratory, although it was not of a very large scale. It was done in the UK, and it just generated energy to maybe like warmify a kettle of water. But in the future, maybe if we can scale this technology, then through fusion reactions, the nuclear byproducts in fusion reactions are mostly very short-lived. So they can provide us some amount of alternatives for resources that are clean. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Devanuj. There is one live question from YouTube. I think you can address this one better. And the question is how quantum computing can help in dealing with climate change.
Yeah, I think it can help in several ways. First of all, if you think about the whole process of how energy is generated and how it comes all the way through the wires to your homes, and you're distributing it, it's a very complicated problem. So if you want to make optimum use of your resources such that your loss is minimal, that is at the end of the day an optimization problem. And quantum computers are potentially good at solving optimization problems. So in this is one of the ways that quantum computers can help you find you the optimal way of extracting energy from your limited amount of resources. Second way is, as I was talking, that in the future, a large amount of energy would be spent on the data centers, because we are moving more and more towards the digital world. So the data centers would be, so I read somewhere that if you calculate someone who is using your mobile phone very frequently would consume equivalent amount of energy of a refrigerator. If you consider the amount of energy that is being used in the data center. So finding ways to reduce this energy would require, again, some quantum computation. So I'm not going to go into detail because I'm also not supposing everyone is an expert. So yeah, I think that.
Thank you, Devanuj, for
Another
your
thing I can't help, but I just want to add to Devanuj. One of the bigger challenges in climate computation is that you have to deal with huge amount of data, and so you need to parallelize the data. So you cannot process the data, and like you have to go in parallel computation. And as per quantum computer goes, it's more easy and it's more efficient to do all those parallel computation. So it's something which we need very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Manak, for adding your views. And there is next question is from Vaisak VM from Hong Kong University of Science. And the question is that India is third largest emitter of carbon dioxide after China and USA because of high coal and oil usage. This is, however, necessary for livelihood. So how can this problem be tackled in the short run? And I think Shailja or Kunal can address this question.
Okay, maybe I'll start, and if Shailja have something to add, she can add it.
Yes, Kunal, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think the question is very much relevant, but like considering the population and other infrastructural needs of our country, it is like quite difficult to reduce our dependency on oil and other sources which are leading to CO2 generation. But in order to, find alternatives, we can have some solutions, like in cities where there is vehicle usage is a lot. Either we can try to switch to EV, that is electric vehicle or battery powered vehicle, or we can try to go for maximizing the use of public transportation, or going for some schemes like carpooling or something. Because right now in big metros like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, there are many people who drive just alone in a quite a big car, and I mean ultimately you are contributing to CO2 generation or something. And in terms of coal, many of our thermal power plants and other things are heavily dependent on coal, and many of the industries in particular regions are also depending on the power which we are driving from the coal. So in short term, it is I don't think possible to reduce that thing, because it will affect our economy in a very negative manner. And renewables are there, but still we are in kind of establishing phase of the renewables. So completely switch to renewable will take some more time. So in the short run, we just have to do some minute measures, but let's see how effective it will be.
Yes, then yeah, it's one solution, and I would also like to add another solution, or but this solution which I am going to discuss cannot be done by the majority of people. So yeah, as we know, it's the major life depend on this CO2, coal industries and all. We cannot control the emission of CO2, but what we can do that after emission, we can convert this CO2 into the another valuable product. So here the role comes of only the chemist. That's why I think majority of people cannot do that. But yeah, as we chemist, we can try to convert this CO2 into the other product, so that we can reduce the concentration in the atmosphere and we can utilize those products into the other well. So this is the one way. Yeah, so there are some industry, they are utilizing the CO2 and activating it into and converting. For example, it's a methanol. Conversion of CO2 into methanol is a very important and very famous process, and a high amount of CO2 is being converted into methanol without any use of harmful solvent or harmful chemical. It's a green process. So there are some, but still we need to develop some technology, some green process, so that we can convert CO2 into the huge amount of some other green product with the green process. So that's really challenging, which is going on, and long-term process, it will be continue.
Thank you, Shelja and Kunal. I think Sutapa is back. So Sutapa, there are two related questions. First question is from Suman Kundu. And the question is the yearly frequency of cyclonic storms increasing due to global warming? And there is a related question for that as well. And the question is from Himanshu Bhushan Nayak from Fakir Mohan University. The question is, what are the remedies for cyclone or monsoon impacts in Odisha?
In the first question, that yes, the yearly frequency of cyclonic storm is increasing because due to global warming, the ocean temperature is rising. So if you understand how the cyclone is happening, that the warmer ocean temperature, a large amount of water gets evaporated and depression created. So if the temperature is continuously rising, the process that water from the ocean surface will very quickly evaporated, and then the surrounding cool air will come and fill up this gap, and eventually it will continue. So it's like kind of obvious that yearly frequency of cyclonic storm is increasing. And it's not only in like India, it's a very global scenario. From 2000 to 2017 and 21, even the states and countries near to the Atlantic Ocean, there is several data where it shows that the cyclonic storm has increased a lot due to this global warming effect. What was the next question? The remedies. Can you repeat
the next question is that what are the remedies for cyclone or monsoon impacts in Odisha?
What does it mean by the remedy? Like, what are the what we can take to solve this issue, like to stop cyclone storm in Odisha? I don't understand this.
I think it is for the impact. What are the remedies for cyclone monsoon impacts in Odisha?
Yeah, it's if you think about the impact, it's the impact is all where, from people life to agriculture and in everything. So if you ask me about what are the steps we can take, yes, again this comes to the main point that we should not increase temperature. Like we should stop emitting carbon dioxide more into the atmosphere. But in terms of this coastal erosion and the coastal state or districts, for that we really need a good civil and town planning, so that these cities or district should not be drowned in the sea level. That we can do. And also the more important thing, the awareness. This awareness is very important among the people, so that it should not, like, we can stop this effect. I think if there is anyone, they can answer better than me, can include.
Is there anyone who would like to add to the Sutapa? If no, we can move on to the next question. The next, yes.
I just want to add, it's a bit loud in here. One thing is that there is no, we are still kind of in a doubt whether increasing sea surface temperature can actually increase the frequency of the cyclone. So there are two factors working here. One is the intensity of the individual cyclones, and another one is the frequency of the cyclones. So there is a patch, I would say, from 2010 to up to 2017. We have seen certain number, the number of cyclones increased to certain extent. But again, there are years where the number of cyclones remains more or less the same, where the intensity increases. So we should rather say the damage from the cyclone is going to increase, but we're still not sure whether the number of cyclones is going to increase or not.
Thank you, Menak. And there's one question. What are the long-term solution against climate change? If anyone from panelists can address this. Or maybe Preetam.
Yeah, hi. So, long-term solutions for climate change would be, first of all, moving to a cleaner source of energy, of course. As previously mentioned, in India, say, coal takes up a lot of, gives us most of our energy. What we can do in long term, yes, renewable energy has to take over to completely replace it. But meanwhile, we can also reduce our carbon footprint by just shifting to gas instead of using coal. So natural gas is far less polluting than coal. And in Europe, this has really worked where the industrial emissions have gone down for the from the last decade, and also since the Industrial Revolution, because they shifted to coal after the Soviet Union. They shifted to gas after the Soviet Union fell. So basically, for long term, it's just we need to do rapid afforestation. We need to do what is known as watershed development, where we do afforestation coupled with some kind of a water body, which will increase biodiversity within the area. We need to think about rainwater harvesting, because the groundwater is drying out. Those are the things we have to do in the future to combat climate change.
Thank you, Preetam. Next question is, how can one survive the effect of climate change? This is from Dr. Sanjeet Kumar Sil Sharma from Madhya College, West Bengal. I think Mainak would be can answer this question well.
Sorry, I could, but it's very noisy here, so it's kind
Okay.
of noisy. So,
Do you want me to repeat the question?
yes, please.
Okay. The question is that how can one survive the effects of climate change?
In a nutshell, you cannot escape the effects of climate change. So it would get you in one way or the other. So what we can do is, it's already been mentioned here that we cannot change something that has been happening globally, but we can change certain behaviors, the way we react to certain things, like using more renewable resources, creating less amount of garbage, and we can plant trees. And we cannot change the climate, but we can at least create certain microclimates, like forest reforestation and areas where there are a lot of green patches. I think that's the most we can do from our part.
Thank you, Manak. There is one question in Zoom chat. Since it is clear that we won't be able to change to clean sources of energy immediately. So could Professor Banerjee comment on the degrowth campaign in the global north to try and reduce consumption of fuel as well as other resources? This question is from Samuel.
Yes. Well, as you can see, today our society is a very wasteful society. Many of the things that we use are not the things we really need. When we were young, we used to go to the grocery shops and buy things that came in newspaper packets, right? And today, no longer, everything comes in plastic packets. And that plastic is waste. What we are forgetting is not only the material is waste, it causes a lot of environmental pollution, but there is a lot of energy that went into producing that plastic. Similarly, you will find that many of the things that we consume are actually not really necessary for our survival or even pleasure. Why do we do that? It is because the production is guided by the sale, and sale happens because of hyped advertisements. And why does that happen? In order to boost the sale, as a result, boost the profit. So what do we produce? Why do we produce such wasteful things? Because that brings profit. And it is this mindset that we really need to question and change. That's one thing. The other thing is that when we were young, practically no house had air conditioners. Now today, much of the energy consumption is in the air conditioners, only for our comfort. Now, can't we survive without that? Or in other words, when we are seeing the whole world is really facing a crisis, does our personal comfort matter that much? So this is another issue that we have to really address. So what I'm trying to point out is that it is one thing to move from one source to another, but why do we need that source? Because we want to consume. And that consumption, we have to really ask ourselves, is it really a necessary consumption? If it is necessary consumption, necessary for the society, necessary for our well-being, yes, that's necessary. See, we read books, and the books are made of paper, and the paper is made of wood. Wood is made of trees, right? So if you then argue that no, we should not read books because it results in cutting trees, that is not the right way. We should definitely have books, and for that we need to cut trees, all right, but we need to add more trees to the environment. That can be done. So I'm not in that sense an ultra environmentalist. Whatever is really necessary, we should do. But what I'm trying to point out is that much of the energy expenditure that happens in the industry is not really for fulfilling the necessities of the society. That is what we should cut down. That is, in short, my take on this particular issue.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, are strict laws needed to change people's attitude towards climate change? Or any comment on the climate policy by the government of India? So this is a very specific question. So I would again request Professor Banerjee to answer this.
Okay. Laws. Laws are for what?
Laws needed to change people's attitude towards climate change.
I understand that. But laws are for what? If you break the law, you go to jail, right? Now, do we really need to drink Coca-Cola one every day? We don't. But can you make a law? You should not. If you drink Coca-Cola, you go to jail. No, you cannot. Right? So it is not a law question. It is basically a question where the governmental attitude is concerned. If the governmental attitude is proper, then there are two kinds of societies. As you know, there are some societies in which things are planned. The production is planned. The other is production is market driven. Where the market driven economy is there also it is possible to what should I say, incentivize certain kind of production and de-incentivize certain others. Now, if the government really understands the importance of the climate change and importance of protecting the climate, then certain productions have to be de-incentivized by additional taxing, and there are certain products that have to be incentivized. For example, there are people who collect our newspapers and turn them into small tonga, what is called. So these are the very energy efficient activities, but no longer it's happening because it is being replaced by plastic bags. So the government must, in that sense, incentivize this and de-incentivize the plastic bags. Similarly, it should incentivize fans and de-incentivize air conditioners. It should be extremely expensive to buy air conditioners so that normal people should not be able to. Because this is necessary for the society, is necessary to protect the environment. So use of plastic, use of packaging, expensive packaging. Most of the soft drinks come in expensive packaging. The packaging is more expensive than the drink itself. So this packaging is completely wasteful. I'm saying that these should be de-incentivized. But in the main, what is responsible for this? The wasteful production, the consumption of not the appropriate resource, and all that happens because what is happening now is driven by maximum profit. Whatever brings profit, you produce that. Whichever source is most profitable, exploit that. So it is basically driven by that, and that essentially needs to change. That's my take on this question.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, how to spread awareness about climate change among common people? And what should be the role of scholars in doing that? And the question is that how breakthrough science society could a people's movement against climate change and environmental degradation? Again, I think Dr. Banerjee would be the best person to answer this.
No, the point is that this is exactly what you're doing. The whole program today is aimed at creating awareness about the problem of climate change, and this is what should continue. But it should also go to the grassroots level. Whatever has happened today, whatever information you passed on to the different science clubs, those should be taken by the class to the people, and then only the whole endeavor is successful. The point is that there is a role of organizations like Breakthrough Science Society in creating the awareness. But then that awareness should create pressure on the government and all the decision-making process so that the process changes. So it is essentially, ultimately, it has to take the role of a movement, something that can pressurize, something that is difficult to ignore, something that, so ultimately, so the present process is that we have to go to the people, we have to make people aware, and so that there is a demand that should come from the people to protect the environment, protect the forest, to reduce the use of plastics, to use appropriate fuel resources, and things like that. All this should come as a people's demand, driven by science. Now, science normally does not reach people. Evidence, evidence that we have, does not reach people, and so often people are carried by misinformation. And so it is the responsibility of organizations like Breakthrough Science Society to take the correct information to the people, to educate people, so that ultimately it takes the shape of an environmental movement. So that is the role that we have. And naturally, there is a large body of listeners today. I would like to appeal to them that please take it seriously, take the message that the earth is now in peril and something needs to be done, and everybody has a role. Even though we may look insignificant in comparison to the whole earth, whole country, they're big shots and we are small tribes. No, we also have roles to play in our own places, as well as in creating a pressure on the powers that be to adopt evidence-based policies to protect the environment. In brief, that is my take on this question.
Thanks a lot, sir. Due to time limitation, we cannot take more questions. And I'm sure that this session has helped a lot of our audience to clarify their doubts. Thank you.
Now we are at the very last part of our program. I would like to request Chandrima, a PhD student in the Department of Chemistry at National Tsinghua University, Taiwan, and a member of Breakthrough Science Society Abroad chapter, to address the audience for the conclusion.
Thank you, Abhishek, for the introduction. So with that, I want to thank our speakers, Shailoja Jain, Devanu Chatterjee, Shutopa Patro, Kunal Tiwari, and Pritam Sharma for taking out time today. I also want to thank Professor Soumitra Banerjee and Moinak Mondal and our audience as well for this interacting session. We hope we have learned a lot and spread this knowledge to others so that more and more people get to know about the critical state of our climate in different regions of India. And apart from this, I would also like to appeal to all our audience to become a part of our efforts to save science, education, research, and scientific temperament in the Indian society by becoming a member of Breakthrough Science Society. All the details on how to become a member are available on our website. So once again, on behalf of Breakthrough Science Society Abroad chapter, I thank all our speakers, our audience, and our organizers for making this discussion successful. And with this, we close the program today.